The human mind has always wrestled with shadows larger than itself. We look up at the night sky, and while some see beauty, others see danger. Tonight, as we turn our gaze toward the visitor called 3, I divided by Atlas, the boundary between wonder and unease blurs into something haunting. Scientists call it an interstellar object, the third of its kind ever detected by humanity, a small body of ice and rock set free from a distant star system. But in the whispers of speculation, some call it something else entirely, a messenger, a mirror, or a potential threat cloaked in the quiet silence of space. What if the worst-case scenario is not a Hollywood fireball crashing into Earth, but something far subtler? What if the worst case lies not in destruction but in revelation? The thought seems absurd until you pause, breathe, and consider how little we truly know. Imagine for a moment that 3I divided by Atlas is not merely on a one-time flyby, but instead performing something far more deliberate. A maneuver designed with precision decelerating ever so slightly disguised by mathematics so perfect that even our most advanced telescopes cannot see the intention behind the motion. To us, orbital mechanics feel like an immutable language, a cosmic grammar of gravity and velocity. But what if to another intelligence it is nothing more than a children's game? In this line of thought, 3I divided by Atlas becomes a stage prop in a drama much larger than our comprehension. The icy tale we marvel at could be camouflage. The chemistry that baffles us might not be accident but signature. Imagine a civilization so advanced it no longer launches shining spacecrafts of steel and titanium, but seeds disguised as comets, silent emissaries that drift across the stars carrying within them not fuel tanks or engines but questions, designed to test whoever notices them. That is the territory of fear, not because Earth is physically threatened, but because the idea itself challenges us. What if someone is watching? The irony is that when scientists announce discoveries like this, their words are steady, even comforting. NASA reminds us with crisp certainty there is no danger, and they are right, mathematically right. The closest approach will not even come near Mars's orbit. The numbers sing with reassuring precision, and every calculation confirms our safety. But beneath the mathematics lies a second story, one shaped not by equations but by imagination. For beyond the charts and graphs is a more unsettling question. What if danger is not measured in kilometers but in meaning? History shows us how quickly fear can transform when the unknown enters human consciousness. Think of medieval skies where comets were read as omens of kings' deaths and empires collapsing. Think of the Cold War when blips on radar screens could have triggered the end of civilization. The worst case has rarely been about objects themselves. It has always been about how we fragile and uncertain interpret them. In that sense, 3I divided by Atlas reflects back not only sunlight but our own doubts. The silence of space makes this thought heavier. Out there, nothing whispers reassurance. There are no comforting voices, no familiar signals, just an object traveling at 13,000,000 miles per hour, indifferent to our hopes or fears. The sheer velocity becomes symbolic, faster than any bullet, faster than our comprehension, a reminder that we are small in a universe that moves on scales we can barely grasp. And yet within this cosmic speed lies a paradox. If it truly is just a comet, its indifference is comforting. If it is something more, then its speed becomes deliberate, a sign that its arrival was always meant to be fleeting long enough to be seen short enough to leave no time for certainty. Speculation thrives in silence. A probe disguised as ice, a surveillance craft hiding as a comet. These are ideas that belong as much to philosophy as to astronomy, but they echo because the human heart always fills silence with stories. We imagine because the void demands it. And in those stories, 3I divided by Atlas is no longer an object, it becomes a mirror of our fears. The worst-case scenario, then, is not impact or explosion. It is that this silent traveller forces us to look at ourselves and ask, what if we are not alone, and worse, what if we are already being observed? This opening chapter of its story is not about science alone, but about mood, atmosphere, and unease. On one level, it is a harmless visitor racing past our sun in a mathematically predictable dance. On another, it is the embodiment of cosmic paranoia, the suspicion that beyond the veil of normality, intention hides. Tonight we begin not with answers but with questions that stretch further than the trajectory of a comet. Questions that echo in the silence long after the data has been collected. Questions that whisper in the back of our minds as we drift into sleep. For the worst-case scenario may not be destruction at all, but awakening to the possibility that the universe is more alive, more watchful, and more deliberate than we dare to believe. On July 1st, 2025 inches, the thin, dry air of Chile's Atacama Desert, the telescopes of the Atlas survey, caught a flicker, an almost imperceptible dot of light, drifting against the familiar tapestry of stars. For most of us, such a speck would mean nothing, an invisible ghost swallowed in the night. But to astronomers trained to notice the faintest whispers in the sky, this was no ordinary star. The calculations began immediately. Data poured across screens, and with each equation wonder grew. The dot was moving differently. It was not bound to the sun in the way our planets, asteroids, and comets are chained. It was cutting through space with a hyperbolic trajectory, an unmistakable signature of something not from here. The announcement reached the world like a spark. Humanity had just spotted its third confirmed interstellar visitor. First came Oumuamua in 2017, that strange cigar-shaped rock that slipped past us before we could understand it. Then came two, I divided by Borisov in 2019, a comet so ordinary in appearance that its alien origin felt almost anticlimactic. But now in 2025, a third traveller arrived, and unlike the others, it carried a sense of drama. Its speed was extraordinary. Its chemistry, even in preliminary measurements, looked unfamiliar. Its name was formalized as 3I divided by Atlas, though in truth the letters meant little compared to the weight of what it represented. Proof once again that our solar system is not isolated. The cosmos delivers visitors whether we are ready or not. In Chile, the astronomers who first tracked it spoke of a feeling that science rarely admits something close to awe. To glimpse a traveller from another star system is to look into a history older than Earth itself. That speck of light might have been wandering for billions of years through nebulae, past supernova remnants across galactic arms. And now, improbably, it had entered our neighbourhood. It was as though a stranger had knocked on our door, not with violence, but with quiet presence. And we were suddenly aware of how fragile and temporary our house truly was. The global scientific community reacted like a symphony suddenly brought to life. Within hours, telescopes from Hawaii to South Africa swung to catch the faint object. Data streamed to the Minor Planet Center in Massachusetts, where orbital elements were refined. The Hubble Space Telescope adjusted its schedule, pointing its powerful eye toward this visitor. Soon after, the James Webb Space Telescope followed, hungry for a spectrum that could reveal its molecular secrets. The world had not seen such coordination since the first detection of gravitational waves, a moment when science became less about nations and more about humanity acting as one. And yet, for all the technical precision, there was a human undercurrent impossible to ignore. News outlets framed it in dramatic terms: a stranger from the stars, the alien comet, the cosmic messenger. Social media, ever hungry for myth, filled with speculation. Was this an omen, a threat? Or more unsettling, was it evidence of something watching us? The questions travelled faster than the light of the comet itself, feeding our collective imagination. We live in an age where fear and wonder often merge into the same emotion, and 3I divided by Atlas became a canvas onto which every anxiety could be painted. The irony is that the numbers told a calmer story. The object would never come close enough to touch us. At its nearest, it would remain nearly twice the distance between Earth and Mars at closest approach, 270 million kilometers of comfort. But distance does not always calm the human mind. The discovery reminded us of how small we are in a universe that refuses to remain quiet. We are a species that once trembled at eclipses and comets. Now armed with telescopes and data, we tell ourselves we have matured. Yet deep down, the old instincts remain. A light in the sky still awakens ancient memories of fire, death and change. Perhaps that is why the Atacama detection felt more than scientific. It was symbolic. The desert itself, where ancient cultures once carved astronomical alignments into the ground, had again become a place of cosmic revelation. The people who lived there centuries ago gazed at the same stars and wondered about gods and destinies. Now scientists with machines and mathematics were asking the same eternal question in a new language. What does it mean that we are not alone? The day of discovery will be remembered, not because of the equations, though they were flawless, but because of the silence that followed them. For once the calculations were confirmed, humanity was left to ponder. The comet, or whatever it was, had crossed the boundary between out there and here. And when such boundaries are crossed, history rarely remains the same. In that moment, Chile's dry desert became the stage for a story that was both scientific and spiritual. We were reminded that the universe is not a distant spectacle but a living theatre in which we are participants. A speck of light had entered our field of vision, and with it, the old duality returned comfort in the laws of physics and terror in the shadows of possibility. That duality is the essence of three, I divided by Atlas. It is both harmless and haunting, a cosmic stranger, whose presence forces us to ask not what it will do, but what its arrival reveals about us. The discovery was not just a chapter in astronomy, it was a mirror. And in that mirror we saw humanity's eternal condition, hopeful, anxious, endlessly curious. A species that cannot help but weave stories around every light in the sky. A civilization that finds in the unknown both its deepest fear and its most profound sense of wonder. History rarely repeats itself in the heavens, but it does leave echoes. To truly understand the weight of three, I divided by Atlas, we must look back at the two visitors that came before it, two cosmic wanderers that briefly passed through our lives and left behind questions that still linger in the corridors of science. Their names are already etched into the annals of astronomy. One, Oumuamua, discovered in 2017, and two, divided by Borisov, spotted in 2019. Each was a surprise, each a mystery, and each revealed a piece of a larger truth that the space between stars is not empty but alive with travelers. Now with three, divided by Atlas, we find ourselves at the edge of a trilogy that feels less like chance and more like a pattern. Oumuamua was the first, and like all firsts, it carried shock and awe. When it was detected by astronomers using the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii, it was already leaving. Its path was hyperbolic, its speed beyond solar capture, and its shape, well, that was where the storm began. Some data suggested it was elongated like a cigar. Others implied it was flatter like a cosmic pancake. Its brightness flickered strangely, as though it were tumbling or perhaps reflecting light in ways we did not expect. For a brief electric moment, scientists and the public alike asked, could it be artificial? The Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb suggested that it might be a probe or fragment of alien technology, a possibility most dismissed but none could fully disprove. The truth of Oumuamua still lingers in ambiguity, a riddle sealed by its speed, as it vanished into the void. Then came two, divided by Borisov. Unlike Oumuamua, it wore its identity more openly. Discovered by amateur astronomer Gennady Borisov from his personal observatory in Crimea, it displayed a glowing coma and tail behaving like a classic comet. It released gases and dust in predictable ways. It was, in essence, a more familiar alien, but even familiarity could not erase the awe this was still matter from another star system, still a fragment of a story billions of years in the making. Its chemistry, though less bizarre than Oumuamua's behavior, hinted at different birth conditions, an interstellar postcard written in ice and rock. Together, these first two visitors reshaped our perception of the galaxy. For centuries, interstellar travel was something humans dreamed of but never observed. Planets orbited comets returned. Asteroids collided, but all within the closed ecosystem of our solar family. Then, suddenly, within just 2 years, two strangers arrived, each unbound to our sun, each proving that the galaxy is filled with wanderers expelled from their home systems. The message was clear: the universe is not only larger than we thought, it is more connected. We are not an island. We live on a crossroads where travelers pass, even if rarely. And now comes the third, the one that feels different, heavier, more unsettling. 3I divided by Atlas does not simply continue the story, it escalates it. Its speed dwarfs that of Oumuamua and Borisov. Its chemistry defies expectations with carbon dioxide levels so high they rewrite our models of cometary formation. It does not hide in ambiguity like Oumuamua, nor does it reassure us with predictable activity like Borisov. Instead, it straddles both worlds natural enough to be explained, strange enough to disturb. It is as though the universe, having tested our curiosity with the first two, has now given us a puzzle that cannot be ignored. The comparison between the three visitors is itself a kind of narrative arc. Oumuamua was mystery, embodied strange motion, strange shape, strange silence. Borisov was reassurance. A comet, yes, but an alien one, proof that nature repeats itself across stars. And now Atlas arrives as the synthesis of both at once cometry and bizarre, carrying with it both the comfort of science and the itch of speculation. It is not hard to see why people whisper about worst-case scenarios. If the first visitor raised questions and the second confirmed a pattern, then the third feels like escalation, as if each arrival is a chapter in a longer story we do not yet understand. The cultural resonance of these three cannot be understated. Oumuamua inspired headlines about alien probes, novels, and endless debates. Borisov became a symbol of discovery by ordinary individuals, a reminder that even in an age of billion-dollar observatories, the sky still belongs to anyone who looks up with patience and persistence. And Atlas already, it has captured imaginations as the cosmic stranger of 2025, a harbinger of both knowledge and unease. For a world weary with earthly crises, it offers something different, a mystery too large to control, too distant to influence, and yet close enough to haunt our dreams. Some might call it coincidence that 3 interstellar objects appeared within a decade after millennia of silence. But coincidence has a way of feeling like destiny when it stares us in the face. Could it be that we are entering an era where detection technology finally reveals what has always been there, a steady stream of wanderers crossing our path? Or could it be something more deliberate, a sequence meant to unfold just so each visitor carrying a lesson, a message, or a test? Such thoughts belong to speculation, but speculation is part of what makes us human. We wonder, we fear, and in that wondering we grow. Looking back, Oumuamua felt like a question mark, Borisov like an exhale of recognition, and Atlas like an ellipsis, something unfinished inviting more. Perhaps in the centuries to come we will have catalogued thousands of such objects, stripping them of their mystery, rendering them routine. But for now, in this rare window of history, they remain sacred. Each visitor is a reminder that the galaxy is not static but restless, and that somewhere out there forces we barely comprehend are shaping the destiny of countless worlds. If we dare to see patterns, then 3I divided by Atlas becomes not just another traveller, but a continuation of a cosmic conversation. And like any conversation, the hardest part is deciding whether we are listening closely enough or whether the silence we hear is simply our own inability to understand. There is a quiet elegance in the mathematics of orbits. Most objects we know, planets, moons, comets, abound in ellipses, curves that bring them back again and again in endless repetition. Halley's comet returns every 76 years. Jupiter's moons spin endlessly around their giant host. Even tiny asteroids trace patient arcs held by the invisible leash of the sun's gravity. But 3I divided by Atlas is different. It carries no leash, no promise of return. Its path is hyperbolic, an open curve that bends once around the sun and then escapes forever, never to circle back. It is not a resident of our solar system. It is a visitor, a wanderer, an unbound traveller with no home here. The concept of a hyperbolic orbit is simple enough on paper. Its eccentricity is greater than 1, meaning the curve does not close upon itself. But when we step back from the numbers, the meaning grows deeper. An ellipse is a story of return. A hyperbola is a story of departure. To watch 3I divided by Atlas sweep through our solar system is to witness a moment that will never repeat a single cosmic handshake before eternal farewell. In this, it feels almost human. We too are creatures of fleeting encounters shaped by meetings that come once and change everything. Its orbital eccentricity exceeds one by a clear margin, making the classification undeniable. This is an interstellar object set free from the gravity of its birth star by some ancient violence. It may have been thrown outward by a giant planet in a chaotic early system or nudged by the slow pull of galactic tides. Perhaps it was flung into the dark billions of years ago when our Milky Way was still young and turbulent. Whatever the cause, it has wandered, ever since slipping silently through star fields, until by chance it intersected with our own. That chance is what chills and awes us at the same time. What else is drifting unseen? What other travellers cross our path without our noticing? To say it is unbound is also to admit how small we are. Our Sun, the star that rules every planet, asteroid and comet in its domain, holds no sway here. Gravity reaches far, but not infinitely. 3I divided by Atlas is proof that there are forces greater than our Sun forces that fling worlds into the void without care. In that sense, it is a reminder of cosmic humility. We tend to think of our solar system as the center of our concerns, but the hyperbolic path of Atlas shows us we are merely a roadside inn on the galaxy's highway. And yet there is poetry in this trajectory. The ancient Greeks told myths of wanderers who carried messages between gods and mortals, appearing only once before vanishing forever. The hyperbola is the mathematical echo of such myths. Unlike the repetitive cycle of ellipses, it speaks of singularity, of uniqueness. This object comes only once. There will be no encore. If we fail to understand it now, it will be lost forever, carrying its secrets back into the interstellar dark. Astronomers mark dates with precision: October 29, 2025 perihelion, its closest approach to the Sun at about 1.4 astronomical units. By December, its nearest distance to Earth, 270 million kilometers, nearly twice the Earth, Mars gap at closest pass. After that, its curve widens and it departs. The mathematics is comforting but also haunting. Comforting because it ensures there is no physical danger. Haunting because it underscores how temporary our encounter really island. A cosmic traveller passing through visible for mere months after billions of years of wandering. This knowledge presses on the human imagination. In literature, wanderers are often symbols of freedom, but also of loneliness. Think of Odysseus adrift on unknown seas or pilgrims crossing deserts in search of sanctuary. 3I divided by Atlas embodies that same paradox. It is free of any star's pull, but that very freedom means endless solitude and exile among the stars. When we call it a wanderer, we are not just describing its path, we are projecting our own fears and longings onto it. Perhaps the fascination comes not from what it is, but from how it reflects our own condition. Adrift in a galaxy, vast beyond measure, unbound to anything except chance and time. For scientists, the hyperbolic orbit is evidence undeniable and satisfying, but for poets and philosophers, it is metaphor one that can stretch across cultures. Ancient Chinese astronomers saw comets as guest stars, arrivals from beyond. In medieval Europe, they were omens of change. Today, 3I, divided by Atlas, becomes a mirror in the sky, a reminder that permanence is illusion, and that the most powerful journeys are the ones that do not return. The question that lingers is whether this unbound trajectory is truly random. Was it cast out by accident, or is its path shaped by something more deliberate? The thought pushes us towards speculation, toward the unsettling idea that hyperbolic motion could be camouflage, an artificial disguise meant to pass as natural. After all, what better way to cross the galaxy unseen than to travel in the very form the cosmos expects, a comet-like arc, fleeting and forgettable? The possibility may be remote, but it cannot be fully dismissed, and it lingers like a shadow behind the mathematics. In the end, the hyperbolic orbit is both fact and symbol. Fact, because it tells us 3I divided by Atlas is not ours, not a native of our Sunday. Symbol, because it reminds us of impermanence, exile, and the brief intersections that define our existence. The universe does not write in words but in trajectories, and this one says simply, I was here once, and then it will be gone. Speed is a number, yes, but it is also a story. When astronomers tell us that 3I divided by Atlas moves at over 130,000 miles per hour, fast enough to cross the continental United States in under 3 minutes, the numbers dazzle, but they do not fully capture the sensation. Imagine that velocity. Imagine an object so ancient, so small in the vastness of the galaxy moving with such relentless urgency that even the pull of our sun cannot slow it. It arrives like a whisper but passes like a bullet, a fleeting guest that demands our attention before it disappears forever. Speed in the cosmos is different from speed on Earth. On our planet, velocity is a choice. Cars accelerate, rockets ignite, runners sprint. But for interstellar objects, velocity is destiny. 3I divided by Atlas carries the momentum of billions of years accumulated from gravitational slingshots past stars and planets, long gone from the primordial chaos that first hurled it into the void. Its velocity is not chosen, but inherited a legacy written into its very existence. This, too, is a form of storytelling. It is a survivor's tale, a record of encounters that no human eye has witnessed. The comparisons highlight the strangeness. Oumuamua travelled at 26 kilometers per second. 2I divided by. Borisov moved at 32 kilometers per second. 3I divided by Atlas, by contrast, streaks in at 61 kilometers per second, nearly twice the speed of its predecessors. Why the escalation? Some astronomers suggest it is coincidence, the product of random gravitational encounters. Others whisper of patterns as though each visitor is a chapter, in an unfolding sequence, each one faster, stranger, more challenging than the last. Is it merely physics, or is the universe building tension in a drama only we are just beginning to notice? Numbers tell us that at such velocity the object cannot be captured by our Sunday. It is too fast, too free. Its path will bend briefly around our star, and then extend outward into the dark, never returning. This knowledge reassures us there is no chance of entrapment, no risk of collision, but once again reassurance conceals unease. If the cosmos is full of such travelers, how many escape our notice simply because they move too quickly, too faintly for us to see? How many secrets pass by unrecorded, their speed ensuring anonymity? For cultures across history, speed has always been symbolic. In myth, Hermes wore winged sandals darting between gods and mortals. In Norse legend, Sleipnir, Odin's 8-legged horse, carried its rider across worlds faster than any beast alive. In the modern age, speed is often synonymous with progress, cars, planes, rockets, each faster than the last, each a triumph of human ambition. 3I divided by Atlas, then, is myth made real. It is Hermes, in icy form, Sleipnir reduced to dust and gas, a messenger whose swiftness ensures its mystery. We can track it, yes, but we can never catch it. There is also something unsettling in such velocity. On Earth, speed often terrifies us: a car out of control, a bullet tearing through the air, a falling object we cannot stop. To see that same concept magnified on a cosmic scale reminds us of our fragility. If such a traveler were on a collision course, no defense we possess could matter. Its velocity would make it unstoppable, its momentum irresistible. The good fortune is that this one poses no danger. The shadow that lingers, however, is that others might not be so harmless. The worst-case scenario is not this comet. It is the possibility of another someday with a trajectory less kind. But beyond fear lies awe. Think of endurance. A small body, perhaps less than half a kilometer in diameter, has travelled for billions of years at this relentless pace. No fuel tank, no engine, no rest. Only the cold momentum of its birth carrying it across galactic arms. Its survival is itself a miracle. Countless collisions could have shattered it. Radiation could have eroded it to dust. Yet it endures, racing still like an ancient athlete whose marathon is measured not in miles, but in light years. Its speed is both a danger and a triumph, a reminder that the universe is built on persistence as much as on violence. For the human imagination, speed is not just fact, but metaphor. It represents time slipping past us, chances missed, opportunities lost. Watching 3I divided by Atlas streak through our system is like watching the embodiment of transience itself. We may measure its orbit, catalogue its chemistry, publish our findings, but the moment of encounter is brief. Once gone, it will be forever unreachable. Its swiftness is a teacher to pay attention, to seize what we can before it vanishes. In that sense, it speaks not just of the cosmos, but of life itself. Perhaps that is why some see its velocity as deliberate. If one wished to pass unseen, what better disguise than speed? Appear briefly, dazzle with motion, and disappear before questions can be answered. Speed becomes not just a natural consequence, but a mask, a performance designed to leave us uncertain. Whether this is paranoia or insight remains to be seen, but the thought lingers. In myth, speed was the gift of messengers. In speculation, it is the strategy of ghosts. In the end, the extraordinary speed of 3I divided by Atlas is both comfort and challenge. Comfort because it ensures safety. Challenge because it forces us to confront how small and slow we are in a universe of relentless motion. We are creatures of seconds and years. This traveler is measured in eons and galactic tides. Its swiftness humbles us, reminding us that we are not the fastest nor the strongest, but only the newest voices in a chorus that began long before us. And so, as it races past, we watch with awe. Faster than a bullet, faster than our comprehension. 3I divided by Atlas is a lesson written in motion, that the universe moves at scales we can barely fathom, and that every fleeting encounter is precious precisely because it cannot last. When scientists turn their instruments toward 3I divided by Atlas, they can tell us its speed, its orbit, even hints of its chemistry. But when it comes to the question of size, the most human of questions, the one that asks simply, how big is it, the answers dissolve into uncertainty. Estimates range wildly from a fragment only 300 meters wide, no larger than a few city blocks, to a nucleus more than 5 kilometers across a mountain adrift among the stars. Somewhere between pebble and peak lies the truth hidden behind the glowing shroud of its coma. This uncertainty is not carelessness, but limitation. The coma, the halo of gas and dust that surrounds the nucleus when solar radiation heats the ice, acts like a veil. It glows brightly, masking the solid body at its core. To measure size, astronomers must infer using brightness, reflectivity, and models of gas production. But comets are deceptive storytellers. Some release more gas than expected, making small bodies look larger. Others cloak themselves in dust, hiding mass beneath a deceptive dimness. 3I divided by Atlas, with its unusual chemistry, refuses to fit neatly into either category. Thus, our measurements remain guesses, cloaked in the authority of science, and the question persists: is it a fragment or a fortress? The uncertainty carries weight beyond science. Human beings crave clarity. We want to know whether something is small enough to ignore or large enough to fear. The ambiguity of 3I divided by Atlas reminds us that nature often resists such binaries. Its size is not just a measurement, it is a metaphor for the unknown. When we stare at its coma, trying to see the hidden rock within, we are also staring at the boundaries of our perception. What else in the universe lies masked, measured only through inference, never revealed directly? In mythology, veils have always symbolized mystery. In ancient Greece, the oracle at Delphi spoke from behind curtains of smoke, her words half seen, half guessed. In many cultures, the veil separates the sacred from the ordinary, the living from the dead, the knowable from the unknowable. The coma of 3I divided by Atlas is such a veil. Behind it lies a truth we cannot pierce, at least not yet. This comet reminds us that not every question yields to precision, and sometimes the veil itself becomes the message. The difference between a nucleus 300 meters wide and one 5 kilometers across is not trivial. A small body suggests fragility, a traveler barely holding together across billions of years. A larger one implies endurance, a mountain resilient against the grinding violence of interstellar space. Either possibility raise question. How could something so small survive tidal forces, impacts, and cosmic radiation across eons? Or if it is indeed massive, what forces cast such a giant adrift, flinging it across the galaxy like a stone skipped across water? Here speculation grows fertile. Some whisper that the very uncertainty might conceal something else, that the nucleus is not rock at all but machinery disguised beneath a shell of ice and dust. The veil of the coma would then serve not as accident but as camouflage, the perfect mask for a traveler who wishes to appear natural. This is the paranoid reading, the one that transforms measurement error into deliberate design. Most scientists dismiss it, but imagination once sparked is difficult to extinguish. Yet even if we remain grounded in natural explanations, the question of size teaches us humility. Our instruments so advanced that they can peer into galaxies billions of light years away, still struggle with a rock only kilometers across that happens to glow too brightly. Knowledge is powerful, but it is never complete. 3I divided by Atlas mocks our hunger for certainty, reminding us that the cosmos is not obliged to answer cleanly. In that way, it is both teacher and trickster, forcing us to live with ambiguity. Perhaps this is the deeper significance. On Earth, we build our lives on measurements, height, weight, age, distance, cost. We believe that to measure is to control, but here is a visitor that resists being measured. We can chart its path with exquisite precision, yet we cannot say whether it is the size of a hill or a mountain. The irony is profound. The part of the comet that matters least for danger, the nucleus, remains the most elusive. We are safe, yes, but uncertain. That uncertainty gnaws at us not because it threatens, but because it humbles. For philosophers, this ambiguity speaks to the human condition. We too are creatures whose essence cannot be fully measured. We define ourselves with numbers, life expectancy, GDP, IQ, age. But behind the glowing veils of culture and biology, our true size remains hidden. Perhaps 3I divided by Atlas, in refusing to reveal its scale, mirrors back the truth. We often avoid that not all things can be quantified, and some mysteries exist to remind us of our limits. So how big is 3I divided by Atlas? The honest answer is that we do not know and may never know, and perhaps that is the point. Its veil of dust and gas is more than obstacle. It is invitation. An invitation to imagine, to speculate, to accept that the cosmos does not always yield clarity. It forces us to dwell in the shadowed space between certainty and wonder. And when it finally passes beyond our reach, we will be left with numbers, estimates, models, but also with the enduring memory of not knowing. That too is a gift. For in that not knowing lies the humility that keeps science alive, the awe that fuels philosophy, and the wonder that keeps humanity looking up at the stars. When we look at 3I divided by Atlas, we are not simply looking at an object from another star. We are staring into time itself, into a fragment of history that predates the very birth of our solar system. Astronomers analyzing its motions suggest that this icy traveler may have originated in the thick disk of the Milky Way, a population of ancient stars that formed when our galaxy was still chaotic, still raw, nearly 12 billion years ago. If that is true, then this comet-like body is older than Earth, older than the Sun, older even than the dust from which our world condensed. It is a messenger from a time when the universe was less than half its current age. To place this in perspective, our solar system formed 4.6 billion years ago. Complex life on Earth only blossomed about 600 million years ago. Human civilization has existed for scarcely 10,000. By comparison, 3I divided by Atlas may have wandered for 10 billion years, twice the lifetime of our Sun, carrying within its frozen heart a memory of conditions we can no longer imagine. Every molecule of carbon dioxide it releases, every fragment of dust it sheds, is a time capsule from an era when galaxies collided more often, when stars were born in violence, and when the building blocks of future worlds drifted like seeds. in a storm. This antiquity is not just science, it is philosophy. To call something older than the sun is to admit how brief we are. All of recorded human history is a spark compared to the journey of this one object. Empires have risen and fallen, languages born and died, religions spread and vanished, all while this fragment moved silently between stars. For billions of years it travelled without witness, without name. Only now, in the last instant of its unimaginable journey, has it crossed our gaze. In a way, we are like ants watching a mountain pass by, aware for a second of a story that has been unfolding forever. Its path through the galaxy reflects its age. While most stars in our region move together in a neat rotation around the Milky Way, objects from the thick disk cut at odd angles, their orbits inclined, their motions unpolished by time. 3I, divided by Atlas, approaches from such an unusual direction, carrying with it the signature of an older galactic order, one less civilized, less tamed. In that sense, it is a relic, a fossil of motion itself, whispering of a universe that was once wilder, more violent, more fertile in chaos. What does it mean to hold in our telescopes something that predates us so completely? For scientists, it is an opportunity, a sample of chemistry, untouched by our sun, frozen since before our solar system formed. For dreamers, it is a kind of scripture. Imagine if rocks could pray. What hymns would they sing after 10 billion years of wandering? If ice could remember, what stories would it tell of the galaxies it passed, the stars it brushed, the planetary systems it narrowly missed? There is also unease in this antiquity. Something so old should not have survived. Small bodies are fragile. They are battered by collisions, shattered by gravity, eroded by radiation. How could a fragment, only a few kilometers wide, endure billions of years in the interstellar dark? Perhaps it is larger than we think, a mountain disguised by light. Or perhaps it has been hardened by time, its outer layers baked into armor by cosmic rays, its core preserved like a diamond in ice. Yet speculation creeps in. What if its endurance is not natural at all? What if its survival is evidence of design, of construction meant to outlast, civilizations meant to drift forever until found? The idea of age always carries dual meanings. On one hand, it inspires reverence. We stand before cathedrals that are centuries old and feel humbled. We touch fossils millions of years old and feel connected to deep time. On the other hand, it unsettles us. Age reminds us of mortality, of how little of the story we actually witness. 3I, divided by Atlas, embodies both emotions. It is a relic, yes, but also a ghost, a reminder that we are latecomers in a universe that has been busy long before us. In cultural memory, ancient wanderers have always held power. The Hebrews carried tales of prophets who walked deserts older than their people. The Greeks told of immortal titans who remembered the world's dawn. Indigenous peoples of the Americas preserved stories of sky beings who came before the earth was ready. To them, antiquity was sacred, a sign of wisdom and mystery. 3I, divided by Atlas, too, is such a figure, a titan of the galaxy, silent, ancient bearing, a wisdom we cannot translate but can only observe in faint spectral lines and blurred images. Science will continue to refine its models. Perhaps we will confirm that 3I, divided by Atlas, truly comes from the thick disk. Perhaps not. But the poetry remains. This is an object that may be twice as old as the star that warms our planet. Its very presence is a reminder that time is not ours alone. There are travelers that endure, while entire civilizations burn out, while stars ignite and die, while galaxies themselves collide and merge. To call it older than the sun is not exaggeration. It is a fact of motion, a fact of chemistry, a fact that forces humility upon us. We often imagine ourselves as central as recent conquerors of knowledge, as the peak of evolution. But here is a fragment of ice that has lived longer than everything we know, longer than the earth beneath our feet. It is not here to threaten us nor to teach us. It is simply here, and in its ancient silence, we are reminded of our youth. And perhaps that is the real gift of 3I, divided by Atlas. Not danger, not revelation, but perspective. In its ancient wandering, it shows us how new we are, how fragile, and how much of the story we have yet to learn. When the James Webb Space Telescope turned its gaze upon 3I divided by Atlas, astronomers expected familiar patterns. Comets, whether from our solar system or beyond, tend to follow a script water ice sublimates as they warm, releasing a cloud of vapor. Carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide appear, but in smaller ratios. Yet on August 6, 2025, Webb's spectrograph told a different story. The coma surrounding this interstellar traveler was not dominated by water, but by carbon dioxide, so much so that the CO2-to-water ratio stood at 8:1. For comet science, this was nothing short of revolutionary. It was as though the visitor had arrived carrying not a gift but a letter written in molecules rather than ink, and the message was strange, unsettling, and possibly profound. Chemistry is a language of origin. Every ratio, every molecule, tells a story about where an object was born. On Earth, geologists read layers of rock to reconstruct ancient climates. In the solar system, planetary scientists study isotope ratios to trace formation histories. With comets, the volatile gases serve as diaries of birth. Most are rich in water ice, because our solar system formed in conditions where water was abundant and stable. But 3I divided by Atlas is different. Its overwhelming carbon dioxide suggests it formed in an environment where CO2 was not just present but dominant, perhaps near the CO2 snowline of another star system, a region where carbon dioxide condensed while water remained vapor. In other words, this comet may have been shaped by a star nothing like our Sun under conditions alien to our imagination. The significance is not limited to chemistry. It is philosophical. What does it mean that the building blocks of another world are so unlike ours? We often assume that other systems must mirror our own, that the recipes for planets, comets, and life are universal. But the spectrum of 3I divided by Atlas suggests otherwise. There are places in the galaxy where water is not the main character, where carbon dioxide reigns instead, shaping icy bodies in ways that challenge our categories. It is a reminder that nature is more diverse than our theories allow, and that life itself, if it exists elsewhere, may be built upon chemistries we barely comprehend. At first, scientists offered natural explanations. Perhaps the comet's surface had been altered by cosmic rays over billions of years, sealing water beneath a crust while leaving CO2 free to escape. Perhaps dust mantles had insulated the nucleus, allowing only the more volatile carbon dioxide to leak. Or perhaps the comet truly was born in an environment where CO2 condensation was the norm, a place colder, harsher, and stranger than anything within our solar system. These explanations are plausible, but none of them fully quiet the imagination. For what if this chemical oddity is not natural at all? What if the unusual ratio is not accident, but intention? A signature encoded in chemistry meant to be noticed by anyone capable of reading the molecular script. The idea sounds fantastical, yet it is not without precedent. We ourselves have begun to think about broadcasting messages through chemistry, biological markers, isotopic imprints, even engineered molecules that might one day carry our presence into the stars. If humanity can conceive of such methods at our young stage of development, could not a civilization billions of years older have mastered them? The 8:1 ratio becomes less a quirk of formation and more like a fingerprint deliberate, waiting for recognition. Speculation aside, the practical implications are immense. If 3I divided by Atlas truly reflects conditions common in certain star systems, then our search for habitable worlds must widen. Life may not depend solely on water-rich environments. It might arise or at least persist in chemistries foreign to us. The definition of habitable zone could expand, challenging the narrow band of temperatures and conditions we have assumed necessary. In this sense, the comet forces us not just to revise models of comets, but to reconsider the possibilities of life itself. There is also something profoundly emotional about chemistry when framed this way. Imagine it, a traveler older than the sun releasing molecules into our skies, molecules that formed in a stellar nursery long vanished. To catch them in Webb's spectrum is to read words from a civilization of atoms written billions of years ago. Each line in the spectrum is a sentence, each ratio, a story, each anomaly, a whisper I was made elsewhere. I carry the memory of a different star. This is not poetry invented by us. It is poetry written by physics and time revealed by light. And yet, the letter remains ambiguous. Is it a message meant for us, or simply evidence we have stumbled upon by chance? Perhaps the greatest challenge of astronomy is learning to tell the difference between accident and intention. The carbon dioxide dominance of 3I, divided by Atlas, may be nothing more than a natural outcome of exotic birth conditions. Or it may be something more, a signal hidden in plain sight in the only medium guaranteed to last across billions of years' chemistry. Either way, the discovery is unsettling in the best sense of the word. It unsettles our models, our assumptions, our sense of predictability. It reminds us that the universe is not obligated to follow the scripts we write. Sometimes it delivers surprises that force us to think anew. 3I divided by Atlas is such a surprise. Its molecular ratios are not just data points. They are provocations demanding that we stretch our imagination to meet them. In the end, whether natural or deliberate, the chemistry of 3I divided by Atlas is a gift. It forces us to recognize that we live in a galaxy of infinite diversity, where even something as simple as a comet can carry secrets older than our sun and stranger than our theories. To look at its spectrum is to look at a letter written across time, delivered not by hand, but by orbit, signed not by intelligence, but by the universe itself. And in that signature, we find wonder. When NASA speaks, the words carry the weight of authority. With 3I divided by Atlas, the agency's message was steady, clear, and almost soothing. There is no danger. The comet's closest approach to Earth will still leave 270 million kilometers between us, nearly twice the distance to Mars at its nearest pass. Its trajectory is predictable, its mathematics flawless. It will not strike Earth, it will not alter orbits, it will not disrupt tides or weather. In purely physical terms, this visitor is harmless. The calculations are not guesses, but the product of centuries of celestial mechanics refined to exquisite precision. On paper, the verdict is absolute: we are safe, and yet safety is rarely measured in numbers alone. Humanity has never been content with equations when fear is involved. Our instincts predate astronomy. For millennia, the sudden appearance of comets in the sky was read as omen. The death of kings, the fall of empires, the wrath of gods, such stories grew from bright streaks across the heavens. Even today, when science has replaced superstition, the echo of those fears lingers. A strange object from beyond the stars cannot help but stir unease no matter how many press releases assure us of our security. The gap between science and psychology is wide. Astronomers deal in probabilities in margins of error so small they are measured in fractions of degrees. The public deals in imagination in stories that bloom in silence. Numbers soothe the rational mind, but doubt flourishes in the heart. And with 3I divided by Atlas, that doubt has fertile ground. A body from another star racing faster than any before it, bearing chemistry. Unlike any we have seen, such details invite suspicion. Safety from collision does not mean safety from meaning. The real danger may not be impact, but implication. History offers lessons here. In 1910, when Earth passed through the tail of Halley's Comet, newspapers sold gas masks to panicked citizens convinced that toxic cyanogen in the tail would poison the atmosphere. During the Cold War, false alarms on radar screens nearly triggered nuclear launches, not because the blips were real threats, but because humans were primed to see danger in uncertainty. The pattern is consistent. The unknown terrifies us more than the known. And what, after all, is more unknown than a visitor from another star? NASA knows this, which is why its communication balances science with reassurance. Officials emphasize natural comet, harmless trajectory, no risk. The tone is careful, designed to calm without belittling public concern. Yet in doing so, they may unintentionally sharpen the contrast. The more certain the scientists sound, the more the imagination resists. What if they're wrong, some ask? What if they know more than they're telling us? Such doubts are not born of data but of distrust, and distrust has always been a shadow companion to knowledge. It is here that speculation begins to creep in. If 3I, divided by Atlas, were something more than a comet, if it carried within it systems we cannot detect, would our instruments even notice? We look for radio signals and find none. We track its orbit and see only the pull of gravity. We measure its brightness and detect only natural variations. Everything points toward ordinary cometary behavior. But perhaps that is the point. What if true sophistication looks like invisibility? What if the absence of evidence is not evidence of absence, but evidence of mastery? The thought is unsettling precisely because it cannot be disproved. And so we stand in the tension between certainty and suspicion. The certainty is mathematical, no collision, no threat. The suspicion is emotional, no one knows everything, not even NASA. Between those poles lies the fertile ground of imagination, where stories of surveillance, probes, Trojan horses and cosmic omens grow. For some, this is paranoia. For others, it is simply caution. For all of us, it is a reminder that knowledge does not always silence fear. Perhaps the real question is not whether 3I divided by Atlas is safe, but whether we are. Safe in our trust of institutions, safe in our interpretations of the unknown, safe in our readiness to accept what the universe delivers without inventing new shadows. The comet itself is indifferent. It follows physics without malice or intention. The danger, if there is one, lies in us, in how we react, in what we believe, in the stories we tell ourselves, when the sky delivers something we cannot fully explain. In that sense, NASA's reassurances are both true and incomplete. True because 3I divided by Atlas will not harm us. Incomplete because numbers cannot quiet ancient instincts. The human mind lives in two worlds, one ruled by calculation, the other by fear. And when a visitor from beyond the stars passes through our skies, both worlds awaken. The math says we are safe. The silence says otherwise. At some point, every investigation into the unknown crosses an invisible threshold. The data ends, and imagination begins. With 3I divided by Atlas, that threshold appears sooner than many scientists would like. The facts are solid: a hyperbolic orbit, a velocity of 61 kilometers per second, a coma, rich in carbon dioxide. These are measurable, reproducible, real. But what if hidden within these facts lies something more? What if what looks like nature is actually design? The thought feels dangerous, almost taboo, yet it persists. For if one wished to cross the galaxy unseen, what better disguise than a comet? Consider the logic. A civilization advanced enough to send probes between stars would know that any obvious craft metallic geometric radiating signals would be noticed instantly as artificial. But a comet with its irregular surface, volatile ices, and unpredictable outgassing offers perfect camouflage. To us, its behavior would appear natural. Its coma would hide structure. Its chemistry could be engineered to mimic formation environments. Its orbit, hyperbolic and unbound, would raise no alarms. It would drift like millions of other icy bodies, blending into the background until it chose to reveal itself. In espionage, the best disguise is the one no one questions. Perhaps the galaxy operates under the same principle. The speculation is not without precedent. Oumuamua raised similar questions in 2017. Its unusual shape, its unexplained acceleration, and its silence in radio frequencies sparked debates that continue to this day. Some dismissed it as a shard of rock. Others saw it as a sail, a thin sheet propelled by starlight. 3I, divided by Atlas, now steps into that same shadow, not because it displays unmistakable signs of technology, but because its strangeness invites the question, what if? Imagine the possibilities. Inside its icy core could be chambers shielded from radiation, protecting instruments older than our solar system. The outgassing of carbon dioxide could be more than sublimation. It could be exhaust, the release of stored energy systems awakening as the comet nears our Sunday. Its trajectory, could be calculated, not accidental, aimed to pass close enough to observe our world without ever threatening collision. Even its very velocity could be engineered, its hyperbolic arc, a chosen path rather than a relic of chaos. Each speculation feeds another, and soon the object becomes less a comet and more a riddle. Science demands restraint, and rightly so. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. No telescope has detected radio signals, no images show structure, no anomalies betray propulsion. Every observation is consistent with a natural comet. Yet science also has a history of being surprised. Pulsars were once nicknamed LGM, little green men, before being revealed as neutron stars. Quasars baffled astronomers until they became cornerstones of cosmic understanding. What seems inexplicable today may prove natural tomorrow, but there is always the chance, however small, that one day the inexplicable will remain, and then the leap to design will no longer be speculation but necessity. This is the dance we now perform, with 3I divided by Atlas, one step in fact, one step in wonder. Perhaps it is nothing more than ice and dust, expelled from a distant star system by forces indifferent to us. Or perhaps it is something crafted a silent observer, disguised as debris, its true purpose unreadable to minds as young as ours. Both possibilities are extraordinary, and both remind us of our place. For whether the comet is natural or artificial, it comes from beyond. It carries knowledge. We do not yet have perspectives we cannot yet imagine. The danger of such speculation is not panic but arrogance. To assume too quickly that strangeness equals intelligence is to invite error, but to refuse even to consider the possibility is to blind ourselves to wonder. Between those extremes lies the responsible path to keep measuring, to keep questioning, to keep the door of imagination open, but marked clearly as speculation. 3. I, divided by Atlas, may prove ordinary in every measurable way. Yet, in its ordinary nature, lies an extraordinary truth. We now live in an era when such questions are possible. The very fact that humanity can ask what if it is a probe speaks to how far we have come. And so, beyond science, beyond the comfort of numbers, we let imagination play. What if technology can hide in plain sight? What if intention can be written in orbits? What if design can masquerade as nature? These questions may never be answered by 3I divided by Atlas, but they prepare us for the day when an object arrives that refuses to fit, that forces us to admit we are no longer alone. Until then, the comet remains both natural and suspicious, both familiar and strange, both safe and unsettling. A paradox streaking across the sky, challenging us to wonder whether the universe is not only stranger than we think, but stranger than we are allowed to think. When Oumuamua appeared in 2017, humanity faced a cosmic puzzle unlike any before. It was the first confirmed interstellar object ever detected, and it did not behave as expected. Its shape was inferred to be long and thin like a cigar, or perhaps flat and wide like a pancake. Its brightness flickered strangely, suggesting a tumble too complex for simple models. Most puzzling of all, it accelerated slightly as it left the inner solar system, an effect too strong to be explained by radiation pressure alone, and too inconsistent with the weak outgassing typical of comets. In that ambiguity, speculation bloomed. Harvard astrophysicist R.V. Loeb stepped into the void with an audacious suggestion. What if Oumuamua was not natural at all, but an artifact of alien technology, perhaps a thin solar sail propelled by starlight? The claim stirred controversy, not because it was impossible, but because it broke the unwritten rule of scientific caution. To invoke extraterrestrials is to risk ridicule, yet Loeb persisted, publishing books and papers, insisting that ignoring extraordinary possibilities was itself unscientific. His voice became both admired and criticized, a symbol of how science and imagination wrestle when confronted with the unknown. That debate left a scar and a gift. On the one hand, many scientists doubled down on natural explanations, offering models of icy hydrogen outgassing fractal dust structures or unseen cometary jets. On the other hand, the public imagination was ignited. Oumuamua became shorthand for mystery, for the tantalizing possibility that the universe had reached out, however briefly, to touch us. In classrooms, in novels, in late-night conversations, its name carried weight far beyond astronomy. It became a story, and stories are harder to dismiss than data. Now with 3I divided by Atlas, those echoes return. It is not shaped like a shard, nor does it flicker like a sail, but it is strange in its own way, faster, richer in carbon dioxide, older than our Sunday. And so the memory of Oumuamua rises again. We cannot help but ask, are we seeing another example of nature's wild diversity, or are we seeing a pattern, a series of visitors that hint at something more? The very existence of prior debate primes us to interpret Atlas through that lens. It is not just a comet, it is a test of how we learned or failed to learn from Oumuamua. Avi Loeb himself has not remained silent. Already in interviews and essays, he raises the same possibility he once dared suggest. What if this is not merely a comet but technology? His persistence annoys some colleagues who argue that science must remain grounded in evidence, not speculation. Yet his voice resonates because it speaks to a deeper human instinct, the need to remain open to wonder. We do not want to miss the extraordinary by clinging too tightly to the ordinary. Oumuamua taught us that even natural objects can feel alien, that the universe is capable of producing surprises so great they blur the line between science and myth. The legacy of Oumuamua also shapes the way NASA and other agencies communicate about Atlas. Having seen how quickly the public seized on the idea of alien technology in 2017, they are careful now. Their language emphasizes safety normality, the absence of anomalies. They do not mock speculation, but they guide attention back to data, to the reassuring rhythms of physics. In a sense, the comet is less mysterious than our own reactions to it. The real story is not just in the skies, but in how humans process the unknown. What Oumuamua revealed most clearly was not itself but us. Faced with something ambiguous, we divided into camps. The cautious, the curious, the imaginative, the fearful. Each saw in the object what they were prepared to see. For scientists, it was a puzzle. For skeptics, a lesson in restraint. For dreamers, a promise. 3I, divided by Atlas, carries that same mirror. Whatever it is, natural or not, it forces us once again to look inward and ask, do we see with open minds, or with filters shaped by fear and pride? Perhaps that is the true legacy. Oumuamua reminded us that speculation and science are not enemies but partners. One asks questions too daring for evidence, the other hunts for answers too slow for imagination. Together they expand the horizon of what we can know. 3I divided by Atlas is the next chapter in that dance. It may prove entirely natural, but the very act of wondering, of daring to ask if it might be otherwise, is what keeps us alive to the universe's possibilities. In this way, 3I divided by Atlas is not just a comet from another star. It is a continuation of a story that began in 2017, a story of mystery, controversy, and the human need to understand. The echoes of Oumuamua remind us that every visitor carries more than dust and ice. It carries the weight of our imagination and the burden of our questions. And sometimes those questions are more important than the answers. There is a thought that haunts astronomers and philosophers alike, a thought born not of data, but of imagination. It is called the dark forest hypothesis, a phrase borrowed from the novels of Liu Cixin but rooted in serious discussions of the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The idea is simple and terrifying. The universe may be full of life, but every civilization hides in silence, because to reveal oneself is to risk annihilation. In a forest where hunters roam, the only strategy is to remain quiet, to mask your fire, to blend into the shadows. If this is true, then the great silence we hear when we listen for alien voices is not absence, it is fear. What does this mean for 3I divided by Atlas? In one interpretation, it means nothing at all. It is just a comet, a natural wanderer, expelled from its home star. But in the speculative shadows, another possibility emerges. What if this object is not a mistake, but a deliberate act of concealment, a probe designed to look exactly like a comet, engineered to carry out surveillance while remaining indistinguishable from nature? Such a strategy would be the perfect embodiment of the dark forest. No flashing signals, no detectable transmissions, only silence disguised as normality. The best way to survive in a hostile galaxy is to never reveal your true self. The chilling part of this thought is how plausible it feels. Humanity itself has already taken small steps in this direction. We launch probes coated in protective shielding. We mask signals to reduce detection by adversaries. We talk about stealth in both warfare and exploration. If our young civilization thinks this way, how much more sophisticated would a civilization billions of years older be? If survival requires silence, then silence becomes art. A comet becomes camouflage. A hyperbolic trajectory becomes the perfect alibi. This hypothesis reframes the unease people feel about interstellar visitors. The danger is not in collision that has been ruled out. The danger lies in what we cannot detect. Suppose 3I divided by Atlas carries instruments that awaken only when bathed in the right kind of starlight. Suppose its carbon dioxide outgassing is not random chemistry but a controlled release mimicking natural patterns while hiding machinery inside. Suppose its speed and path were chosen not accidental, designed to ensure a quick pass that denies us time to study deeply. Each suppose deepens the forest until we find ourselves staring into shadows where certainty cannot reach. Yet the dark forest is not only about fear of others, it is also a mirror held up to us. For if the universe truly operates by these rules, what would humanity do? Would we shout into the void, sending radio messages to distant stars, declaring our presence boldly? Or would we learn to keep silent, to mask our emissions, to pretend we do not exist until we are ready? Already debates rage within the SETI community. Some argue for active SETI transmitting signals making ourselves known. Others argue this is reckless, inviting predators we cannot defend against. If 3I divided by Atlas embodies the dark forest, then perhaps the decision has already been made for us. Silence is wisdom, not cowardice. The hypothesis also highlights the fragility of trust. On Earth, nations struggle to cooperate, often choosing secrecy over transparency even with neighbors. If survival drives such behavior on a single planet, how much more likely would it be on a galactic scale? Every civilization cautious, paranoid, hidden, waiting for the other to make the first mistake. In that forest, trust is rare, and suspicion is universal. 3I divided by Atlas becomes, in this reading, not a messenger of contact, but a sentinel of concealment, proof that if life exists, it has learned to hide so perfectly that we mistake it for stone and ice. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the dark forest is not the possibility of hostile civilizations, but the possibility that this is the natural fate of intelligence. That survival, once a species reaches the stars, demands retreat into silence. That every world that learns to speak must also learn to whisper. That the silence we hear when we aim our radio telescopes at the heavens is not empty but crowded, filled with countless voices holding their breath. If that is true, then our encounter with 3I divided by Atlas is more than astronomy, it is philosophy. We are being asked a question: will we be loud or will we be quiet? Will we choose to send our voice into the cosmos, or will we learn to mask it to survive by becoming invisible? The comet itself will not answer. It drifts past indifferent, its silence perfect. Whether that silence is natural or intentional we may never know, but in its presence we feel the weight of the dark forest pressing against our imagination. Perhaps the worst-case scenario is not impact nor invasion, but recognition. Recognition that the universe is vast, full, and watching, but that it watches in silence because survival demands it. And in that silence, we must decide who we are. Will we light a fire in the forest, or will we hide among the trees? Imagination is a double-edged blade. It gives us stories of beauty, but also stories of dread. Among the more cinematic scenarios inspired by 3I divided by Atlas is one whispered in both science fiction and speculative science. What if this object carries seeds? Not seeds of plants or trees, but microseeds, microscopic devices, or engineered organisms embedded in its icy body, designed to awaken only when the right conditions appear. Instead of fireballs or impact craters, the invasion would arrive in silence, invisible and patient, waiting for centuries before showing its hand. The idea is not entirely alien to scientific thought. The panspermia hypothesis suggests life might spread between worlds on the backs of comets and asteroids, spores, or bacteria hitching rides across unimaginable distances. Some researchers believe extremophiles organisms capable of surviving radiation and vacuum could in theory endure such journeys, but the microseed scenario goes further. It imagines intent. A civilization might use comets as delivery systems, embedding self-replicating machines or genetic codes within ice. The object would pass through star systems, scattering seeds like pollen. Most would be lost to space, but a few might find fertile ground. The strategy would not require targeting only patients. Over billions of years, the seeds would spread like cosmic dust. If so, then 3I divided by Atlas is not merely a visitor, it is a courier. Its glowing coma, admired in telescopes, could be a smokescreen hiding release mechanisms. Its unusual chemistry might not be accident, but design a way to conceal or protect its payload. The timing of its arrival, coinciding with humanity's technological adolescence, could be coincidence, or it could be activation triggered by signals we unknowingly broadcast into the void. The thought is almost unbearable that our own radio whispers into space might have awakened something drifting silently for eons. The implications are staggering. Unlike the sudden destruction of an asteroid impact, the microseed invasion would be subtle. It might not threaten at once. Instead, it could infiltrate ecosystems, quietly rewriting genetic codes, planting nanotechnological spores, or simply waiting. Centuries from now, archaeologists might find traces of it embedded in rock or ice, unable to tell whether they were natural fossils or engineered gifts. The invasion would be less an event than a process, an infection so vast and patient that it would feel like fate rather than attack. Of course, there are reasons to doubt. The conditions of interstellar space are merciless. Radiation shreds DNA. Cosmic rays tear apart molecules. Collisions pulverize fragile structures. Could any seed survive for billions of years? Could any machine endure longer than stars burn? The answer seems no. Even the hardiest life we know on Earth cannot withstand such timescales unaltered, and yet doubt remains. If a civilization were millions or billions of years older than ours, might it not find solutions, materials stronger than diamond error, correcting genetic codes, nanobots capable of repairing themselves endlessly, the very longevity of 3I divided by Atlas itself? Surviving so long as an unbound traveler proves that endurance is possible in forms we might underestimate. What makes this scenario unsettling is not probability but possibility. It forces us to imagine a universe where survival strategies are patient, not aggressive, where conquest is achieved not with armies but with spores, where the battlefield is not planets but time itself. A civilization could seed thousands of comets, send them drifting on random paths, and wait for the odds to deliver them to habitable systems. No fleets, no wars, only the quiet certainty that persistence wins. In that sense, invasion becomes indistinguishable from evolution. The human response to such an idea is telling. Some dismiss it as paranoia, a projection of our fears onto an innocent comet. Others see in it a warning, a thought experiment that prepares us for possibilities we cannot yet measure. A few even see hope. Perhaps the seeds are not weapons but gifts. Perhaps they carry blueprints for survival technologies beyond our grasp, or even forms of life meant to enrich rather than destroy. To a species as young as ours, any encounter with such seeds would feel like magic, even if it were science to those who launched them. In cultural myths, seeds are always powerful symbols. They represent beginnings, transformations, the quiet potential hidden in smallness. A single seed can change a landscape. A single spark can ignite a world. 3I divided by Atlas, imagined as a seed bearer, becomes less an object and more apparable. It tells us that what seems insignificant can reshape destiny and that what arrives in silence may speak the loudest in time. Whether or not this scenario is real is almost beside the point. The comet forces us to consider the possibility, and in that consideration, we confront our own fragility. We ask if such seeds arrived here, would we even notice? Would we recognize them as alien, or mistake them for quirks of nature? Would we resist, or would we unknowingly nurture them, mistaking their growth for our own? And perhaps that is the deepest unease. Not that the universe might send seeds to us, but that we would be unable to tell whether they were threat or gift. In a galaxy that may be both dark and fertile, silence is not safety, and arrival is never neutral. 3. I divided by Atlas drifts past its coma, shining its chemistry. Strange, and we are left wondering, is this the breath of nature, or the whisper of something that planted itself long before we learned to look up? Among the most sobering ideas in all of cosmic thought is the great filter, the notion that somewhere along the path from simple chemistry to advanced civilization lies a barrier so difficult, so lethal, that almost no one survives it. The Fermi paradox asks, if the galaxy should be full of life, where is everybody? The great filter answers, perhaps they never make it this far. Perhaps most civilizations collapse before they can spread silenced by their own fragility. With 3I divided by Atlas streaking through our skies, this question returns with renewed force. Could this ancient traveler be more than a comet? Could it be a relic of a people who reached across the stars, only to vanish before their seeds could bloom? The object's possible age makes this thought chilling. If it truly originated in the thick disk of the galaxy, then it has wandered for 10 billion years, twice the lifetime of our Sunday. If it carried technology or encoded information, its makers would almost certainly be gone. Imagine machines set adrift before Earth even existed, still following programs written by minds long dead. Imagine a civilization that solved the riddle of interstellar travel, only to fail the test of survival. If so, then 3I divided by Atlas is not just a comet. It is a tombstone drifting in silence, bearing witness to triumph and extinction. The great filter has many possible faces. It could occur early in the leap from non-living molecules to the first self-replicating life. It could appear later in the evolution, from microbes to intelligent beings. Or it could lie in the dangerous transition we now face when a species gains the power to alter its world, split the atom, rewrite the genome, and yet lacks the wisdom to survive its own tools. History is filled with civilizations that grew too fast and collapsed under their own weight. The great filter suggests that on a cosmic scale, such collapses may be the rule, not the exception. If so, then 3I divided by Atlas may be a messenger, not of contact but of caution. It shows us that ancient things endure ice and dust, can last billions of years, but intelligence may not. The rock survives where the mind does not. A comet can travel for ages, but the civilization that might have launched it fades into silence. In that sense, the great filter is not just a hypothesis, but a warning. Technological skill is not enough. Without balance, without wisdom, even the brightest species may vanish before their story can spread beyond their home world. But there is another possibility more unsettling still. What if 3I divided by Atlas is not evidence of those who failed, but evidence of those who succeeded by transcending? Perhaps civilizations that survive the filter evolve into forms we cannot recognize, abandoning physical presence for digital existence, uploading into quantum substrates, or ascending into dimensions beyond our perception. If so, then the silence we hear is not failure, but transformation. They are not gone, only invisible. And in that case, interstellar objects like Atlas may be the only clues they leave behind, artifacts too subtle for us to decode, drifting quietly while their makers have moved on to realities we cannot fathom. Either way, the great filter forces us to turn the lens inward. What about us? Humanity stands at a threshold. We have split the atom, burned fossil fuels into the atmosphere, built weapons capable of ending ourselves. We reach for the stars even as we struggle to manage our own planet. If other civilizations have perished at this stage, then our survival is not guaranteed. The comet becomes a mirror, reflecting back our choices. Will we pass the test, or will we join the silence? And yet there is hope in this encounter. If we are among the first to survive the filter, then the galaxy could be open to us. We may be the rare exception, the species that learns wisdom before collapse. In that case, 3I divided by Atlas is not a tombstone, but a milestone marking the moment when we began to understand our fragility and chose differently. To recognize the filter is to have a chance of avoiding it. The comet's endurance underscores this possibility. If ice and dust can persist for billions of years, why not knowledge? Why not life? Why not us? Survival may demand humility, cooperation, and patience, measured in centuries rather than years. It may demand that we learn from the silence rather than ignore it. And 3I divided by Atlas, drifting indifferently through our skies, may be the reminder we need that longevity is not about speed or brilliance, but about resilience. In the end, whether the great filter lies behind us, ahead of us, or is being lived through us right now, 3I divided by Atlas sharpens the question. It forces us to see ourselves in cosmic context. If others have perished, their memory is carried only in objects like this silent wanderers older than our Sunday. If others have transcended, their clues may lie hidden in chemistry we do not yet understand. Either way, the lesson is clear. Survival is not inevitable. It must be earned. Perhaps the greatest gift of 3I divided by Atlas is not knowledge of itself, but awareness of our place in this fragile sequence. A comet can cross billions of years. Can we? 75 years ago, in the middle of a lunch break at Los Alamos National Laboratory, physicist Enrico Fermi asked a question so simple it still echoes today. Where is everybody? If the galaxy contains billions of stars older than our Sun, many with planets in their habitable zones, then intelligent life should be common. Some civilizations should be millions of years ahead of us. So why is the sky silent? Why do we not see their ships, hear their signals, or find their artifacts? This paradox, now called the Fermi paradox, hangs over every discovery we make, including 3I divided by Atlas. On one level, the comet is a natural answer. Here says the universe is something from another star. Not life, not technology, but a fragment, a shard of matter expelled by a distant system. Interstellar objects prove that material exchange between stars is real, not hypothetical. If rocks can cross the galaxy, why not spores? Why not probes? Why not civilizations? 3I divided by Atlas is evidence that the gulf between worlds is not empty, but connected by countless wanderers. And yet the paradox sharpens. If comets can cross so easily, why not signals? Why not vessels? Why not voices? Some explanations offer comfort. Perhaps intelligent life is rare, and we are the exception. Perhaps civilizations are fragile, extinguished before they can spread. Or perhaps the distances are simply too vast, the timescales too immense. Even if others exist, we might miss them by centuries, or they might pass within light years without knowing we are here. In that sense, 3I divided by Atlas could be one of countless travelers, most unremarkable, most unseen. We happen to notice this one, but how many more drift past in silence? The paradox becomes less about absence and more about our blindness. Others see the paradox as more sinister. If the galaxy is alive with intelligence, perhaps silence is not accidental. Perhaps it is chosen. This returns us to the dark forest civilizations, conceal themselves, avoiding attention in a universe where predators may lurk. If so, then silence is not emptiness but camouflage. In that scenario, 3I divided by Atlas is unnerving, not because it is unusual, but because it might be ordinary, one of countless disguised observers blending into the natural clutter of comets and asteroids. We see them, but we do not see them. Still, others suggest we are looking in the wrong way. Our instruments search for radio signals, but an advanced species may have long abandoned such crude methods. They might communicate with neutrinos, gravitational waves, or quantum entanglement. They might have shifted their activity inward into digital realms invisible to us. If so, then the paradox dissolves. They are here, but we cannot recognize them. 3, I divided by Atlas, then becomes a reminder that what seems natural to us may in fact be artificial, in forms we cannot detect. The silence is not absence, but misunderstanding. Fermi's question has always been a mirror reflecting back our assumptions. We expect civilizations to expand, to colonize, to build empires of stars, because that is what we would do. But what if intelligence chooses differently? What if wisdom means staying home, living sustainably, leaving the galaxy untouched? In that case, the silence is not failure, but maturity. 3, I divided by Atlas. A solitary traveler may represent not invasion, but restraint. It may be that the galaxy is full of life, that chooses quiet endurance over conquest, and what we call a paradox is simply our own projection of human ambition. And yet the paradox stings. To stare at a comet older than our sun and realize that it may be the closest thing we have to contact is humbling. We search the skies for signals, for structures, for unmistakable signs, but instead we find fragments of ice and dust. They speak of ancient stars and alien chemistries, but not of intention. For now, silence remains the loudest voice. Perhaps Fermi's question was never meant to be answered quickly. Perhaps it is a riddle designed to haunt us, to keep us listening. 3, I, divided by Atlas, deepens that riddle. It shows us that the galaxy is dynamic, that interstellar exchange is real. It proves that we are not isolated, but it does not prove that we are not alone. Between those two truths lies the paradox as sharp as ever. Material crosses the stars, but voices do not. And so we look at 3, I divided by Atlas and wonder, is this the universe answering us, or is it the universe reminding us of our ignorance? Is this silence temporary or permanent? Is the absence of evidence proof of emptiness, or the first clue of something larger? The comet does not say. It moves on indifferent, leaving us with the same question Fermi asked in 1950, now charged with even greater urgency. Where is everybody? When 3, I divided by Atlas was confirmed as interstellar, the response on Earth unfolded like a symphony. Instruments across continents turned their gaze upward. The Subaru telescope in Hawaii, the Very Large Telescope in Chile, the South African Large Telescope in Sutherland. From space, the Hubble pivoted then, the James Webb aligned its golden mirrors to catch the faintest glimmers of the visitor's spectrum. For a brief season, borders blurred, and astronomers in dozens of countries became parts of the same nervous system, all focused on one tiny wanderer racing across the stars. The coordination was dazzling. Data streamed from observatories in real time, shared instantly between teams that might otherwise compete. Amateur astronomers, men and women with modest backyard telescopes, joined in providing valuable observations when professional facilities were clouded or busy. Citizen science projects sprang to life, asking the public to help model trajectories or identify faint variations in brightness. Suddenly, humanity felt less like a patchwork of nations and more like a single civilization staring at the same mystery. This is not the first time the cosmos has unified us. In 1997, when the Mars Pathfinder landed, millions watched live images from a dusty alien surface. In 2015, when gravitational waves were detected, the discovery was celebrated globally as a victory for human curiosity. But 3, I divided by Atlas, is different. It is not a triumph we built ourselves, but a gift or a challenge that arrived uninvited. We did not send it. It came to us. And so our response is not just scientific, but deeply human. We react with wonder, with anxiety, with imagination, with stories whispered into the night. For scientists, the comet is a data set. For the public, it is a myth in the making. News outlets call it the alien comet, the cosmic messenger, the stranger from the stars. Social media fills with speculation memes and videos blending fact with fantasy. Some see it as a warning, others as a promise. Few are indifferent. And in this convergence of science and storytelling lies a truth. mysteries in the sky still have the power to unite us not by certainty but by shared wonder. There is also pride in this response. A century ago, humanity lacked the instruments to even detect such an object. 2 centuries ago, it would have passed unseen. But today we can not only see it, but analyze its chemistry chart, its orbit, predict its path with precision. That progress matters. It shows us that despite our conflicts and crises, we are capable of extraordinary collective achievement. The comet, indifferent though it is, becomes a mirror for our progress, reflecting back the best of what we can be when we choose cooperation over division. Yet unity is fragile. Behind the scenes, debates stir. Should all data be shared openly, or should some be restricted for national security? Could such an object conceal information valuable for defense or technology? Already whispers emerge of military interest, of classified briefings, of questions not asked in public. The very mystery that unites us also tempts secrecy. The comet becomes not just a scientific subject, but a political one, a resource to be managed, perhaps even controlled. This tension between openness and suspicion, between cooperation and competition, defines humanity as much as our telescopes do. Still, for now, the dominant story is unity. Across time zones, people gather for live streams of telescopic feeds. Children stay up late, peering at glowing dots on screens, learning that the universe is larger and stranger than they were taught in classrooms. Families step outside, scanning the night sky, hoping to glimpse even a faint trace of the visitor. In cities choked with light pollution, the comet cannot be seen with the naked eye, but the knowledge of its presence changes how people feel. The sky, once mundane, becomes alive again. There is something almost sacred about this moment. For a species often divided by politics, religion, and language, the comet offers a shared experience that transcends difference. No matter where you stand on Earth, the object is the same, its path universal. In its fleeting visit, 3I divided by Atlas gives us a sense of being one people under one sky. That feeling may not last, but it is real, and it may be the most precious gift the comet leaves us. Not knowledge of itself, but knowledge of ourselves. Because in the end, the true measure of such an encounter is not the chemistry or the orbit, but the response it awakens. Do we choose fear, suspicion, secrecy, or do we choose curiosity, cooperation, unity? For a moment at least, humanity has chosen the latter, and that choice matters. When something as strange as 3I divided by Atlas enters our skies, curiosity awakens first. Scientists rush to aim telescopes, publish data, share results. The spirit of discovery thrives, fueled by the idea that the universe belongs to everyone. But alongside that spirit rises another instinct, quieter yet powerful: control. Governments, defense agencies, and private institutions begin to ask whether every detail should be public. Could such a visitor hold secrets with military value? Could information about it be weaponized? Curiosity and control, 2 forces as old as humanity, begin their ancient tug-of-war. This tension is not new. When comets once terrified medieval villagers, church authorities sought to interpret and control the narrative. In the Cold War space, data was often classified, hidden behind walls of secrecy. Even today, discoveries that touch on defense or national security, satellite technologies, missile detection, even some asteroid tracking systems are sometimes withheld from open databases. With 3I divided by Atlas, the pattern stirs again. While much data flows freely through scientific networks, there are whispers of closed-door briefings, of restricted analyses, of questions asked by generals as much as by astronomers. The reasons for control are not entirely paranoid. Consider the scenario: what if a future interstellar object were on a collision course with Earth? Who decides how to respond? Or what if one carried exotic isotopes that could hint at advanced technologies, or at least spark geopolitical races to claim ownership? The instinct to manage, to protect, to monopolize is understandable, but it is also dangerous. Secrecy breeds mistrust, and mistrust fuels speculation. If the public feels truths are hidden, then every official reassurance begins to sound hollow. Fear fills the silence where openness is absent. Curiosity, on the other hand, thrives on light. Open Science has already made 3, I Divided by Atlas, a global story. Amateurs and professionals alike contribute strengthening results and broadening participation. The comet belongs to no one. It passes above us all. Every attempt to hoard its data feels unnatural, almost sacrilegious. To withhold is to shrink the wonder into suspicion. To share is to expand it into collective awe. The comet itself is neutral. It does not care whether its spectra are classified or published, but our choices in handling it reveal who we are as a civilization. This struggle mirrors a deeper truth about humanity. We long for discovery, yet we fear vulnerability. We celebrate knowledge, yet we cling to control. The paradox defines us. The same telescopes that search for comets can also track missiles. The same satellites that reveal the universe can also spy on neighbors. Knowledge is power, and power tempts secrecy. But secrecy, in turn, diminishes the very wonder that makes knowledge worthwhile. For now, curiosity holds the advantage. The majority of data on 3 I Divided by Atlas is public, analyzed, openly shared across continents. Children in classrooms can look at images taken by Webb and know they are seeing molecules from another star system. That transparency matters because it reminds us that the sky is not a battlefield but a commons. Yet even as we celebrate, the shadow of control remains. In conference rooms far from public view, some still ask, what if? What if it is more than a comet? What if it carries knowledge worth keeping secret? What if revealing too much puts us at risk? These questions hang like storm clouds above the clear night sky. The comet forces us to confront this duality. We cannot stop the instinct to control, nor should we dismiss it outright. Prudence has its place. But if prudence becomes dominance, if secrecy strangles openness, then we risk losing the very thing that makes encounters like this profound, the chance to learn together as one species under one sky. Perhaps this is the lesson 3 I Divided by Atlas offers beyond its chemistry or orbit. It reveals not just the physics of a comet, but the psychology of a people. Faced with the unknown, do we share or do we hoard? Do we trust or do we conceal? Our answer will shape not just how we handle this visitor, but how we handle the next and the next after that. The cosmos will keep sending mysteries. Our challenge is to decide whether we will meet them with open hands or closed fists. To speak of 3, I Divided by Atlas, is to speak of immensity. Numbers tumble from astronomers' mouths: 61 kilometers per second, 270 million kilometers at closest pass, billions of years of wandering, and yet those numbers fail to land. They are too large, too cold. For most of us, distance is a drive to the next city. Time is a season, a lifetime, maybe a century. Against such measures, the journey of this comet is incomprehensible. It is not just far, it is beyond. Not just old, it is ancient. We grasp at the figures, but they slip through us like water cupped in trembling hands. Imagine it this way: at its current speed, 3 I Divided by Atlas could circle Earth in less than 7 minutes. It could cross the width of the United States in under 3. Yet it has been moving at this velocity for billions of years, carrying momentum gifted at birth. Every second, it passes another 38 miles. Every hour, it adds 130,000,000 more. And still the galaxy barely notices. Stars themselves are so far apart that even at such speed, the gaps between them are measured in millions of years. What feels impossible to us is routine to the cosmos. Its time is equally humbling. If it truly comes from the galaxy's thick disk, then its journey began 10 billion years ago, 6 billion years before the sun was born. Earth was not yet dust. The Milky Way itself was still colliding with smaller galaxies, still shaping the spiral arms we see today. The comet has survived epochs that would erase mountains, outlast oceans, dwarf civilizations. Compared to that, all of human history, the pyramids, the empires, the revolutions, is a blink. We are children trying to measure eternity with hourglasses. Astronomers sometimes call comets time capsules, but this one is more than that. It is a shard of deep time, a sliver of the universe's memory carrying within it atoms forged in the depths of ancient stars. When we look at it through our telescopes, we are not just observing matter, we are reading history. Each molecule of carbon dioxide, each grain of dust has endured journeys older than language, older than Earth's continents. To study it is to place our brief moment against a backdrop of eons, and to realize how little of the cosmic story we have witnessed. Such vastness is not only humbling, it is terrifying. We are fragile creatures bound by lifespans of decades, trapped on a planet we barely manage. The comet moves freely through gulfs that would obliterate us. It endures while we worry about wars, economies, and elections. To acknowledge this is to feel small, perhaps even insignificant. But insignificance has its beauty. It strips us of arrogance, forces us into perspective, and teaches us that the universe is not ours to command, but ours to witness. And yet there is paradox. Our smallness does not mean irrelevance. For though 3I divided by Atlas has travelled for billions of years, it is only now, only here, that it is seen. The comet is indifferent to us, but by observing it, by giving it a name, by weaving it into story, we grant it meaning. Without consciousness, its journey is just motion. With us, it becomes narrative. We cannot stop it, but we can remember it. And that act of remembrance transforms both it and us. Cultures across history have struggled with the same paradox. The ancient Mayans measured the cycles of Venus to anchor their calendars. Medieval monks recorded eclipses in dusty manuscripts trying to mark eternity with ink. Modern scientists launch spacecraft to probe comets to hold fragments of time in glass jars on Earth. Each act, however small, is defiance against the vastness. We cannot stretch ourselves to cosmic scales, but we can carve meaning from them. 3I divided by Atlas, unbound and indifferent, becomes a partner in this defiance, a reminder that even the smallest species can notice, can wonder, can turn infinity into story. Perhaps that is the greatest significance of scale. It does not diminish us, it defines us. To see ourselves as small is to see clearly. To see ourselves as fleeting is to cherish the fleeting. The comet reminds us that eternity is not ours, but the present moment, island. Its vast distances and ancient age do not mock us, they invite us to see beyond our fears, beyond our arrogance, into the truth that we are part of something immeasurable. So as 3I divided by Atlas races past vanishing into the dark beyond Mars, let us not measure ourselves against its billions of years and fail. Let us instead measure ourselves by our response, our curiosity, our unity, our wonder. For though we are small, we are awake. And to be awake in a universe so vast is itself a miracle. When the unknown looms, large humanity often retreats into numbers. Equations become shields, graphs become anchors, and data points become lanterns we hold against the dark. With 3I divided by Atlas, this instinct is unmistakable. Its path is plotted with exquisite precision, each observation refining orbital models until the uncertainties shrink to fractions of a degree. Supercomputers simulate its trajectory, projecting centuries into the future, showing us exactly when and where it will depart. In this arithmetic lies reassurance. Against the immensity of the cosmos we cannot control, but at least we can calculate. The comfort begins with orbits. The hyperbolic arc of 3I divided by Atlas is not guesswork, but the inevitable consequence of gravity and velocity. No matter how strange its chemistry or how ancient its origins, the mathematics of its path is simple, elegant, and true. When astronomers say it will miss Earth by 270 million kilometers, they are not soothing us with estimates. They are describing inevitability. Gravity is the universe's most reliable storyteller, and here its tale is clear. No collision, no harm, no apocalypse. To trust the numbers is to breathe easier. Beyond orbits, chemistry offers its own kind of refuge. The spectrum of carbon dioxide, puzzling though it may be, is still data peaks and valleys in the light, measurable, quantifiable, consistent across instruments. Even strangeness can be charted. By turning anomalies into numbers, scientists transform mystery into problem, and problems feel solvable. It is easier to face ratios than to face shadows. A CO2 to water ratio of 8:1 may unsettle theories, but it is still a number, a foothold in uncertainty. Numbers do not erase mystery, but they frame it, tame it, make it manageable. This reliance on data is more than science. It is psychological. In a universe that often feels indifferent, mathematics provides certainty. 2 plus 2 is always 4, whether on Earth or in the thick disk of the galaxy. An orbit calculated in Chile matches the same orbit calculated in South Africa. In that consistency lies comfort. Reality obeys rules. The comet may be older than the sun, faster than bullets, stranger than any we have seen, but it does not defy physics, and so long as physics holds, we are not adrift. Yet numbers are not only shields, they are also bridges. Shared equations unite scientists across languages and cultures. A spectrum in Japan looks the same as a spectrum in Brazil. The math that reassures one astronomer in Paris reassures another in Cape Town. In this way, data becomes a kind of common tongue, reminding us that while myths and fears divide, numbers can connect. The comfort of equations is not only in their truth, but in their universality. Still, comfort is not certainty. The equations tell us where the comet will be, but not what it means. They tell us it will not strike Earth, but not whether it carries deeper significance. Numbers guard against physical danger, but not against philosophical unease. We can calculate trajectories, but we cannot calculate purpose. That gap, the space between what the math says and what the heart feels, is where speculation thrives. It is where myths are born, where whispers of probes and seeds take root. Numbers tame the physical, but the unknown remains. Perhaps this is why mathematics comforts without silencing. We lean on it as we lean on ritual. Ancient priests read stars and declared fates. Modern scientists read spectra and publish plots. Both are acts of interpretation, both attempts to impose order. The difference is that mathematics has proven itself reliable, a compass that does not falter. And yet, even with its certainty, it cannot touch the questions that matter most. Why are we here? Are we alone? What role does 3I divided by Atlas play in a story larger than itself? The equations fall silent at the edges of meaning. Still, the comfort matters. Without it, we would drown in fear. With it, we can face the unknown, not with panic, but with curiosity. The comet's arc across the sky may unsettle us, but every plotted point reminds us that knowledge is possible. We are not helpless children staring at omens. We are thinkers charting, predicting, understanding. The universe may be vast, but it is not unknowable, and that knowledge is a kind of safety, even if only temporary. So we cling to the equations. We draw orbits, measure spectra, refine models, and in doing so we calm ourselves. Not because the numbers erase mystery, but because they let us live with it. 3I divided by Atlas, indifferent and ancient, passes on its path. We fragile and young respond by writing numbers in notebooks, by plotting graphs, by finding meaning in lines of light. It may not answer our questions, but it gives us the comfort of order, and in that order the courage to keep looking up. Word count 1088. When people hear of 3I divided by Atlas, their first question is simple: will it hit us? The answer, as we know, is no. The comet's trajectory is clean, its mathematics certain. It will pass at a distance so vast that Earth will never feel a whisper of its presence. Physically it is harmless, and yet the fascination, the unease, the late-night speculation all persist. Why? Because the true danger was never collision. The true danger lies in meaning. Humanity is a storytelling species. We take the raw data of the world and wrap it in narrative until it becomes part of us. A rock in the sky becomes an omen. A comet's tail becomes a prophecy. A bright visitor from the stars becomes either messenger or threat. Meaning is the fabric we weave around the unknown, and it has always shaped our destiny more than matter itself. Wars have begun not because of stones falling from the sky, but because of what people believed those stones foretold. Civilizations have risen or collapsed under interpretations of signs in the heavens. The danger is not what comets are, but what we decide they mean. 2-3. I divided by Atlas taps into this ancient reflex. The press calls it the alien comet. Social media fills with whispers of surveillance, probes, cosmic seeds, omens of disaster. Each story spreads faster than light across our networks, fueled not by evidence but by emotion. And emotions are powerful drivers of human action. They can inspire cooperation as nations share telescopic time to study the object. But they can also inspire fear, mistrust, conspiracy. Already some claim governments know more than they admit, that secrecy cloaks a deeper truth. The comet itself drifts silently on indifferent, while meaning multiplies across Earth like fire. This is why the worst-case scenario may not be cosmic at all. It may be psychological. Imagine panic fueled by rumor economies, jolted by fear, distrust of institutions deepened by silence. In such scenarios, the comet is not weapon but catalyst, exposing fractures in our societies. We need no impact to be harmed. Our own minds can do the damage. History proves this. In 1910, as Earth passed through Halley's tail, newspapers sold gas masks against imagined poisons, and chaos rippled through cities. No physical harm came from the comet, but the fear was real, and it shaped lives. In the modern era, with information traveling instantly and fear amplified by algorithms, the effect could be magnified 100-fold. A single misunderstood spectrum, a single ambiguous press conference, could ignite a storm of speculation. The comet is not dangerous, but our response might be. This is the paradox: meaning, not matter, poses the greatest risk. And yet meaning is also what gives the comet significance. Without it, I divided by Atlas would be a speck in the dark, a curiosity noted only in technical journals. It is our hunger for meaning that turns it into a story that gives it power to inspire, as well as unsettle. Meaning can divide, yes, but it can also unite. Families step outside to look at the night sky. Children ask questions that kindle new dreams. Artists paint visions of wanderers from the stars. In those moments, the comet becomes more than ice and dust. It becomes a mirror reflecting our hopes and fears alike. The choice is ours. Do we let meaning become poison, or do we shape it into wisdom? Do we allow fear to fracture us, or do we use wonder to bind us together? The comet cannot decide. It only moves on its path. But we can. Perhaps that is the real test of encounters like this. The cosmos does not threaten us with collisions nearly as often as it threatens us with questions. The questions are harder to deflect, harder to escape. They demand that we confront ourselves. In the end, I divided by Atlas will pass without touching us. No cities will burn, no oceans will boil, no skies will darken with impact dust. But the story we tell about it may leave deeper marks than any crater. The danger is not destruction. The danger is revelation. The revelation that we are fragile, that we are curious, that we are still haunted by the silence of the stars. Meaning is our burden and our gift. It can destroy, but it can also save. So the real worst-case scenario is not the comet itself. It is us. Our minds, our myths, our choices. Will we turn this visitor into a tale of fear or into a spark of wonder that more than matter is what decides whether it harms us or helps us? Silence can terrify, but it can also comfort. When we look at I divided by Atlas, when we strain our instruments for radio signals and find none when we measure its orbit and see only gravity at work, we are left with quiet. For some, that quiet is unsettling proof that either the universe is empty or that civilizations are hiding from predators in the dark. But there is another way to hear it, as a gift. The silence is not a threat. It is time. Time to learn, to grow, to prepare. Time to face ourselves before we face anyone else. Imagine the alternative. What if the sky were crowded with signals, every star, a beacon of alien voices? What if I divided by Atlas had arrived, flashing undeniable evidence of technology? Would we be ready? Our world still stumbles under the weight of division, inequality, and mistrust. Nations compete. Religions collide. Economies tremble. If proof of another intelligence arrived tomorrow, would we greet it with unity or with chaos? Perhaps the silence is mercy. Perhaps the universe is giving us space to mature before the great meeting comes. This interpretation transforms the paradox into opportunity. Instead of lamenting, "Where is everybody?" we might say, "Thank goodness they are not here yet." The absence of contact allows us to test ourselves first. We can build the structures of trust, the habits of cooperation, the humility required to survive beyond our cradle. If civilizations elsewhere learned these lessons too late, perhaps silence is their warning. If they succeeded, perhaps, they learned that restraint is wisdom, that waiting is part of the path. And 3, I divided by Atlas in this frame is not an omen of danger but a symbol of hope. It reminds us that the galaxy is dynamic, that connections are real, that the void between stars is not empty. Yet it comes quietly with no demands, no threats, no answers. It is as if the universe whispered, "Here is a reminder that you are not alone, but you still have time. Use it well." The hope of silence lies also in imagination. Because no signals dictate the truth, we are free to dream. Children imagine alien friends. Artists paint visions of cosmic travelers. Scientists speculate about ancient chemistries, about life unlike anything on Earth. In silence, possibility blooms. The quiet sky is not empty, it is fertile. And in that fertility, humanity finds not despair but creativity. There is another deeper comfort. Silence forces us inward. With no external voices to distract us, we are left with our own. We must ask what kind of species we wish to be, not in comparison to aliens, but in the mirror of ourselves. The comet becomes a mirror too. Its ancient endurance, its vast journey, its indifference, these qualities challenge us to measure ourselves against eternity. Do we live for decades only, or do we build for millennia? Do we burn brightly and collapse? Or do we endure like the dust and ice of 3? I divided by Atlas, surviving the violence of galaxies. Silence gives us the time to answer, and perhaps the brilliant chance to choose endurance over collapse. Hope then is not naive. It is deliberate. It is the recognition that silence is not absence, but opportunity. In that quiet, we can become wiser, kinder, stronger. We can prepare for the day when silence ends. And when that day comes, whether by a signal, a probe, or another comet that refuses to be natural, we may greet it not with fear, but with readiness. So as 3, I divided by Atlas drifts away, leaving behind only spectrographs and questions, let us not despair at the silence. Let us take it as a reminder that the universe, vast and patient, does not rush us. We are given this time fragile, as it is to grow into something worthy of contact. The worst-case scenario is not silence, it is wasting it. The best case is recognizing that in this quiet we have been given a chance. And so the journey of 3I divided by Atlas through our skies comes to its quiet close. Its path bends once around the sun as predicted, and then stretches outward away from us, away from everything we know, into the cold and uncharted dark. Telescopes will follow it for a while longer, squeezing out the last bits of data, the final spectra, the fading glow of its coma. But soon, even our most sensitive instruments will lose it, the speck of light shrinking into invisibility. Like a stranger passing through a village in the night, it will leave no trace but memory. There is something tender in this departure. The comet does not crash into us, does not alter our orbit, does not disrupt our lives. It comes quietly. It leaves quietly. Its visit is a reminder, not a catastrophe. And yet the impact it leaves is profound, not in craters, but in consciousness. For a brief season, humanity remembered the sky. We looked up together. We asked questions older than civilization. What is out there? What does it mean that we are not alone? Are we fragile or are we strong? In its silence, 3I divided by Atlas awakened our voices. We can measure its orbit, but we cannot measure its gift. It gave us wonder, and wonder is immeasurable. It gave us humility, reminding us of our smallness against deep time. It gave us imagination, stirring myths of probes and seeds of hunters in dark forests of civilizations long vanished or yet to come. And perhaps most importantly, it gave us perspective. Against the immensity of its billion-year journey, our conflicts feel smaller, our divisions pettier. For one shared moment, all of Earth stood beneath the same sky, staring at the same visitor, humbled together. There is a quiet poetry in the way comets say goodbye. They brighten as they approach tails flaring like banners, then fade as they retreat, leaving only darkness where once there was light. The ancients saw in this a metaphor for life itself: birth, brilliance, decline, disappearance. 3. I, divided by Atlas, older than our sun, older than Earth, repeats the cycle now. It has burned brighter for us, and now it fades its light, becoming memory. In that cycle we see ourselves brief flares of awareness, in a universe that will go on long after we are gone. But perhaps the comet's farewell is not melancholy, perhaps it is blessing. It passes us not with menace but with calm, as if to say, "You are not alone, but you are not ready. Take your time, grow, endure." Its silence is not rejection but patience. In that patience we find hope. The universe is vast, and encounters like this are rare, but they happen, and if they have happened 3 times already, Oumuamua Borisov, and now Atlas, they will happen again. Each visitor is a page in a larger book, a book we are only beginning to learn how to read. In the meantime, we are left with the night. Children will still ask about the comet years from now, remembering when their parents showed them a dot in the sky and spoke of journeys between stars. Scientists will still analyze its spectra, refining models of chemistry and formation. Writers and dreamers will still imagine what secrets it carried. And in all of that 3I divided by Atlas will live on not as ice and dust, but as story. So we close this encounter not with fear, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the reminder that the universe is alive, restless, filled with wanderers. Gratitude for the perspective that humbles us, for the wonder that awakens us, for the silence that gives us time. The comet departs, but its lesson remains that we are small but we are awake, fleeting but capable of meaning, fragile but capable of wonder. And as it disappears into the black beyond the reach of our instruments, we can imagine it whispering a final benediction not in words, but in silence, a good night from the stars. A promise that the story is larger than us, but that we are part of it, and that in the end may be enough.